Real life trading nation.
All right, traders, friends, family, team, and fans from around the entire world. I have another really cool person to interview. Now, you've likely seen us in our COVID quarantined podcast entitled The Sales Samurai, where I interview Lindsey Buxman and ask her about her sales techniques and how she became an incredible person and sales specialist. But now I'm going to talk to her and give you some insight on something I didn't even know existed, which is investing in plays. She is a Broadway investor, as well as a sales specialist, as well as a real estate investor, as well as just an overall badass. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the investing world of plays. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So Lindsey, how does one go about investing in a play?
5 years ago, I started investing in plays. I was going to a lot of Broadway, and I love shows. I love going to plays. And said, I want to help. I want to be a part of this community, and I want to give back to this community and help it grow. And so then I started investing in plays. I basically just cold emailed producers. So I'd go to shows. I found shows that I really liked and thought were doing well commercially as well, because you can look at all sales data for every show when Broadway is actually open. And then after I cold emailed them, I was able to kind of find shows that I liked and invested very, very small initially just to get my foot in the door. You're also kind of initially given less strong plays or less strong shows. So it's good to start small. And then over time have just developed and continued to invest more and also bring in investors and start to help them get into the business as well.
What does a strong play look like?
So you've got plays that are done for the art and the story, and then you have plays that are done by seasoned producers, by good creative teams, like the people who are building the play. You typically also get to go to a workshop and see some aspect of the show coming to life. So it's somewhat gut feeling, do I like what this looks like? Think about if you're buying an art piece, you have to if it's going on your wall. Here, it's a very similar thing. You're looking and saying, would I be proud of this? Would I want to take my friends to this? That's a big piece of it. But if you think about as well what's doing well, you'd have Lion King, which is a massive success for Disney. Disney's had some flops along the way too, though, so it's give and take. Hamilton, obviously. You have Wicked, Jersey Boys. Some of those shows like Cats are just the ones that everyone knows of. So you can think about if it aligns to that, if it aligns to current times, and then what you like as well. Why
would someone invest in a play other than the semi-obvious reasons? But break that down for me, because I've heard from a very credible source, that most plays don't actually work. So why would an investor take a risk in investing in a play?
Great question. So first and foremost, I do it because I love the arts. I love contributing to telling more stories and feel it guided me and gave me my path to my career. So that's the first thing is if you're not willing to write a blank check to it, maybe that's not your reason for investing. Others invest for the perks. You get access to opening night and to the Tony Awards if your show is nominated. And those are really fun things. And it also brings together a really cool group of New Yorkers and people around the world as well, but just some of the most fascinating people in the world in one room around one show that they've all helped to create. That can be really cool. And that's also in that same room of investors and producers, you have the people behind the show, the creatives behind the show as well. So if you have any interest in getting to know a famous Broadway actor and actress, you're in the same room, you're partying with them and celebrating with them. So that's one way as well. And then there are returns if you're in the right shows as well. So there is a fiscal purpose to it as well. But again, so many shows lose money. Typically 2 in 10 to 1 in 3 will make their money back. So refund or pay back their investors. But everything else is losing money. of those 2 in 10 shows, 1 in 10 will do really, really well. And really well is looking at like a 10 to 20 times return of your investment over time. So shows are making money by essentially every week you're selling seats and you're hopefully selling seats. So when you're selling seats, all the profit before recoupment goes back to investors. And so it pays back investors first. And then post recoupment, 50% goes to the investors and 50% goes to the producers for life. So as long as that show is on Broadway, sometimes 20 years or so, you're going to make that money back. So Wicked has made about 1,000% return on their investment. Like, it gets up there. It's really fun to be in Wicked too, because then you've always been a part of Wicked. It would be so cool to get to say I've been a part of Hamilton, but I feel like I'm about 10 years too late to the industry. Would have needed to do that when I was really young. So it's a cool industry. There's definitely returns, but there's a lot of risk to it. So I consider that to be the highest risk element of my investing portfolio. And I also invest in shows that I would feel okay writing blank checks to. Not blank checks. You're never going to have to spend more money than what you invest, so you're never losing more than what you've invested. But I have to want to be really proud of the show.
Another question then would be, what is the size of a typical investment for a show? And at what stage do investors come in on? Like, is it up until the curtain, or can investors come in after it's played 4 or 5 times? And then also, is it just Broadway, or can people do it in cities like, I don't know, Frankfort, Kentucky?
You can definitely do it in Frankfort, Kentucky. So size first. Typically Broadway investments, $25,000 would be a good starting investment. My first Broadway investment was $5,000. So there are ways to find small things. Sometimes you're splitting it up with a group, but then you need to start a company to have that split be official. Sometimes producers will be really nice and let you in at $5,000, but it's really, really rare. So 25 is a good start. 50K or 100K are other minimums. And then sometimes perks are just limited. So you only get opening night seats if you're investing 50K kind of thing. So that's kind of how investment sizes work. And then there are abilities to get better deals if you're investing, let's say $250,000 or $500,000 and becoming one of the co-producers of the show. So there's optionality there as well. But those are kind of perks that you want to know the business. You want to have gone through a few investments first before you start to consider that. As far as places and where, I typically prefer to stay on Broadway and on the West End, which is London's theater district. I like shows to be mostly developed. So development of a show could take 10 years. You can get in really, really early stage when creatives are like, I have this story, I want to write it. You can get in for pretty cheap, but it is so risky. It's risky that it's ever going to make it to the stage. Mm-hmm. Like, there are 40 Broadway theaters. So it's cool to get to be a part of it. 40 Broadway theaters, because you have to be a theater that's eligible to win a Tony to be a Broadway theater. You have to be a certain size, and New York's real estate is busy doing other things as well. So you have to get a Broadway theater, which takes a lot of pull, because there's also the Lion King that's sat there for decades. And so there aren't many places for shows to go. You could run out of money at any point in time. So it gets really risky. Again, you could get in for less, you could have a bigger role. So some people like doing that. I like the glitz and the glamour of being in there when I know the show is going to come out in about a year or so. You may have already seen awards come through from them having a run in London or in Chicago. And so I like things that have been tested a little bit more than just saying, I have an idea, I want it to go to Broadway. And so that's my sweet spot and where I feel most comfortable. It really just depends on how creative, how artsy you want to be versus how practical and fiscally responsible you want to be in this very risky industry. London's wonderful because it's just cheaper to create shows. So shows typically cost, I want to say about $10 million is a very easy average, as you will. So some shows could cost 30 million. Moulin Rouge was at 30 million this last year. So they're in investments. They're huge shows. You're investing in the company and owning equity in the company that is bringing a show with hundreds of people behind it to Broadway. They're investments. They're large investments. You've got quite a few investors in it. London, I've done shows that are £2 million, and that's so much easier to do. So it's just cheaper to bring it to London. There are fewer unions, different economies there. So I like London. I like Broadway a lot, but I also do smaller like cabaret shows or just help to support artists in that way. And so that's what I would bring to Frankfort, Kentucky is, a smaller play, a shorter play. It doesn't need to be Broadway caliber. We're not looking for a Tony Award. We're looking for people to have fun and maybe develop a show a little bit more. And then you're not investing $10 million in total into a show. You're investing maybe $20,000 to bring it to life. So that's what I see Frankfort, Kentucky doing really well. And then you can invest in tours. Typically, tours are a lot safer investments, but you also don't invest or get the right to invest in tours unless you've invested in the mothership, which is that Broadway investment. So you have to have a history of supporting the show, and then you get rights to invest in the future, and also licensing rights. And you're getting future royalties for a limited amount of time, but that is something that is another perk of Broadway investing.
That is so cool. That is so cool. And there's no way that you guys all knew this, because I didn't even know that this existed until I met you. So I really want to say thank you for opening my eyes and just enlightening me. I'm sure I'm just an uncouth individual. I'm sure everyone knows all about this, but it was just really intriguing to me to know that this existed. And one of the other perks I remember you mentioning for investors is that could turn into, you mentioned tours, but like, let's say owning the rights to high schools. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Oh yeah, so that was, okay, just for context, everyone, we were hiking stairs for like hours on end when we were talking about this. So a little bit out of the like realm of, okay, a Broadway investment, but what you can do as well. So we were just talking about location. I love the concept of not first going to Broadway, but first using the power of YouTube and using the power of just social media to help build the brand in that way. And then have very high school centric shows. So a show about a group of cheerleaders and what their life unfolds in a night together or something like that. Something that's very high school age centric, can really highlight a great group of theater kids who love theater, and are done with artists who are known in that space. So known by teenage girls, basically. I think there's some cool opportunities there. So we're working on something like that, where it's don't bring it to Broadway first, just bring it out to the world. That's been done one other time before. There's a musical called Six that was brought to London first, and they're coming to Broadway. They were stopped because of COVID, so they were very close to opening night and didn't get to open. But they were opening on a cruise ship as well, so that's obviously gone. But they were doing both at the same time, which like Broadway typically would shun and look down on. So because they want your show to only be available on Broadway first, and then you can go to cruise ships later. So Six is thinking differently. Hamilton is even thinking differently because they have those streaming rights and they sold those to Disney Plus for $100 million. They did that while it was technically still open and running on Broadway. Right now it's closed, so they actually moved the streaming date up so Disney Plus could start streaming sooner. But it's a new model, and it's really cool to see that. So I forgot the question. We started to talk about new models, but there's lots of like cool new things that are happening, and it creates more ways to develop wealth. So if you do have a producer who's looking at that and looking at like true feasible alternatives and just thinking about it differently, it could make it a better investment as well.
How would an investor like yourself, a seasoned professional Broadway investor, how do you go about mitigating risk in a show or in something of that nature?
Yeah. So this is like putting your mind before your heart in many ways. There are some shows that I just love, and you have to say no to so many shows. It is also a matter of just I try to do the minimum investment in every single show that I do. So I don't say, oh, let me go and put 200,000 or 500,000 in this show, because I want to invest across shows. So diversification, huge thing there. Even if I love a show a ton, I'm not going to put all of my eggs in that basket, just because I know my tastes are not the taste of everyone.
Yeah.
So diversification is a huge key there. And then I always want to move really quickly, and like, I feel like your audience is very much like that as well, and you're very much like that. So I want to go 100 miles per hour and like invest in everything, and just slowing down and not doing that, and just like waiting it out. I waited a few things out, and I was so glad I did, because I made the decision to wait in like late February and just felt like I needed a little break. And it saved me quite a bit of money to wait that out. So it's never a bad thing not to do something. And that's honestly the best way to mitigate risk there.
Yeah, because obviously no one saw COVID coming to the extent that it was, literally shutting down that entire industry. What are your thoughts on that going forward? How long does it last? How long does that impact last in that industry?
Yes. So London's already running shows. Like, they have live theater again, which like is incredible. It definitely looks different. You're booking in pods, you're not next to everyone. And then occasionally it'll be shut down for a mandatory 2-week lockdown that they have. So it's a weird version of theater. But it's existing because people love going to shows. They love to have that experience. Broadway will definitely wait for the vaccine, especially knowing Broadway's audience, which is typically older. They are an at-risk demographic in many ways. So Broadway will take a while. I won't invest in Broadway for a while. I'll be looking in the West End first, and then some of these other like fun projects that I have in mind. So it'll take a few years. And especially for new investors, unless you really want to get started right away, like I would wait 5 years. It's just, you don't know what's going to shut down again. Broadway has never been shut down for more than like, I want to say 10 days. Like, it's never been shut down until now. So it's just, to get shows up and running, you have to have such capacity, like so many seats filled each night to make a profit. And I don't see that happening soon. So I'm kind of waiting it out, focusing on other things, and then again, trying to do more in the theater space, like in Frankfort, Kentucky. So that's what I'm thinking of.
Cool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's really good advice. And I appreciate you sharing that with everybody, because yeah, this is unprecedented times, and good job waiting in February. That was smart. I actually know a friend who sold a music production company in late February as well.
That was really smart too.
Great timing. He said that was all luck, but I was like, man, that was some good luck. Yeah, gut feelings are great. Very cool. What is then, Lindsey, your favorite play and why?
So I would say Legally Blonde, the musical. There's also a movie. I love Legally Blonde, the musical. I saw it, I've never seen it on Broadway. I saw it in Denver. So a touring production of Legally Blonde. Prior to going, I wanted to be a dance teacher. I was like failing. No, I wasn't failing. I was getting a B in biology, but like I wasn't all that studious. I went and saw the show and left saying, oh, I could go to Harvard. Like I could do that. Prior to that, I hadn't had many like strong female business women in my life. My dance teacher was really the only one I knew of. And so I wanted to be like her. I wanted to be a business person. But I thought that that was the way of doing it. So seeing Elle Woods and Legally Blonde, like changed that narrative for me. It changed my entire life. It made me need to be on the East Coast in New York. And basically I would be a tap dance teacher. I didn't see Legally Blonde, so I love that show. It is so funny to me as well. I think it's hilarious. It didn't make money, if memory serves. I don't think it did all that well. Like it didn't make massive returns, and it's not still on Broadway, but it changed lives. And so that is a big piece of it, is how can you tell more stories, help other people understand what's possible. and Legally Blonde did it for me. So
That's a cool story. I did not know that. I did not know it was a play. What came first, the play or the movie?
I think in that case, the movie came first, I believe. Again, like I was so young at the time that I had no idea. I was too young to even invest in Hamilton kind of thing. So like, and that was really recent. So yeah, I have no idea, but it is common for a movie to be made into a musical. So that one I don't like as much because then you have movie royalties to pay out. And so it's harder to make your money back. But the reverse way, where the musical is the first really like big work of art that's created, you can then get money when movies are made out of it if you had invested in that first production or that first big production. So it is cool that it links into the movie world. It also links into the Grammys, like your show could win a Grammy, which is really cool. And so there's lots of possibilities there.
That is so intense. You're such a cerebral person, Lindsey. You're so smart. Just this world I never knew of before. Yeah.
You know so much of it and you can't do anything. It's the best.
For at least half a decade, apparently. I'm gonna have to wait half a decade. Now, I will say, since you are on the podcast and the episode, you are now a stock trader. So congratulations on that. Up until now, what was your stock investing experience and what was your thoughts on the stock market?
Yes. I invested, but I didn't invest much. Like for me, it was like, $10,000 in stock investing was enough. And then I just had like so much money in savings accounts. I also, so even though I knew Broadway was super risky, I wanted to get to the next level. And so I put in probably like 250 to 500K in a very short period of time, like 2 years into Broadway. Even though I knew that it was all like super risky money. And so I did that because I had a place to go and I needed to be in that industry. Now that it's more set and I don't want to be putting that much money in there, I'm able to like actually have the balance that I was looking for. I was also super young at the time, so I could just throw away money in that way. I'm still young, but I'm excited to throw money into stocks now. And instead of just expecting a 10% return, even though the market's killing it, use your techniques and learn from you and really start to burn that up. So because I'm bored, I have no theater to invest in. It's not actually my own choices. The world has done this to me, but it's led me to you, and we'll be doing a ton of stocks this year.
Yeah, we're gonna do a ton of things together in general. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Lindsey Sue Buxman. Remember that name. She is, and I'm very sincere when I say this, you are a really, really incredible person. You're very driven. You're very focused. She's almost a decade younger than I am. Far more superior in every way. Pretty close. 26, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, 6 years, half a decade. Over half a decade younger than I am. And the youngest person on this island, we're on a private island that you're also an investor of. Hello, people, what are you doing? Be like Lindsey. That's what I'm saying. That's the message of this particular podcast. And I really appreciate sharing this with us. January at the month of real life trading is extra income month. And so it's just a good way to educate myself and everyone else out there on different ways to invest, different ways to make money, different ways to grow our bank account, grow our finances, become more financially free, and just experience life in such a vastly superior way than a lot of people do because they're afraid and they have to take risks in order to do that. So amazing. My absolute pleasure. And if you are watching this, make sure you check out the subscription or descriptions or information down below, because I'm also going to have links to the Sales Samurai, where over an hour we discuss her sales techniques on how she does 7-figure deals, ladies and gentlemen. Absolute monster. So Lindsey, thank you for your time. You're awesome. My pleasure.